Welcome back to our channel. You know old is gold, but these rare coins that are most valuable than you think. Don't spend these coins if you have these coins. Please watch complete video. Let's start this. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America tonight, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even your pocket. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And that's exactly why it's dangerous to ignore. Because history has proven, again and again, that the most life-changing opportunities don't announce themselves loudly. They whisper. And today, that whisper has a name, the 1962 VDB Lincoln Cent penny. Let me ask you something before we go any further. What if the most valuable thing you own right now costs only 1 cent, and you've never really looked at it? This is not a story about luck. This is a story about awareness. About timing. About knowing what others overlook. In the early 1960s, America was changing fast. The economy was strong, optimism was high, and the U.S. Mint was producing millions of Lincoln pennies at the Denver Mint. But during that process, something extraordinary happened. A small number of 1962 VDB pennies left the mint with rare and powerful minting errors. Errors so significant that elite collectors now compete fiercely to own them. And in today's red-hot collector market, the finest known examples have reached values approaching $799,000. Now, before your brain jumps to disbelief, good. That hesitation you feel is the same reaction most people have right before they miss an opportunity. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: the coin market doesn't reward people who assume. It rewards people who verify. And those who took the time to understand this penny didn't just find a coin. They found leverage. So what makes the 1962 VDB Lincoln Cent so special? It's not just age. It's not nostalgia. It's precision failure. Rare die errors, doubled dies, off-metal strikes, and exceptional mint anomalies created under high-pressure production conditions. These errors were never meant to leave the mint. Yet a small number did. And today, they are among the most aggressively sought-after 1-cent coins in modern American numismatics. Collectors don't see copper, they see scarcity. Investors don't see pennies, they see proof of wealth preservation. Here's a quick reset. Have you ever laughed at the idea of checking pennies? Most people do. Until they realize that some of the wealthiest collectors in the country built their fortunes one worthless coin at a time. Funny how that works, isn't it? The joke always lands differently after the punchline costs $799,000. This is the moment where fear and excitement collide. Fear of missing out. Excitement at the possibility. Because once you understand demand, you understand power. Right now, demand for rare Lincoln cents is at historic levels. Baby boomers and seasoned collectors are actively liquidating assets into tangible, portable wealth. Auction houses are reporting record prices. Private buyers are moving fast, quietly, decisively. And the supply? Fixed. No more 1962 VDB pennies will ever be made. That's the part most people underestimate. You can print more money. You can build more houses. You can't recreate a minting error from 1962. Once a high-grade example enters a private collection, it often disappears for decades. That's why urgency isn't hype, it's mathematics. Now imagine this scenario. You inherit a box of old coins. Or you've had a small stash sitting untouched for years. You almost donate them. Almost cash them in at face value. Almost give them away. That almost is where wealth is either created or erased. Because the difference between a common penny and a six-figure penny is knowledge. Nothing more. Nothing less. And here's the pattern interrupt most people need to hear. Banks don't want your rare coins. Pawn shops don't understand them. Even some dealers won't tell you what you really have. That's not a conspiracy, it's specialization. Which means the person who educates themselves first controls the outcome. The people who win in this market aren't gamblers. They're strategic. They study mint marks. They verify errors. They authenticate condition. And when the moment is right, they sell into strength, not desperation. That's how a 1-cent coin becomes a lifestyle upgrade, a legacy asset, a quiet win no one saw coming, Picture the confidence of knowing exactly what you hold. Picture sitting across from a buyer who knows they need your coin more than you need their offer. That shift, from uncertainty to authority, is where wealth changes hands. And let's be honest, how many times in life do you get a second look at history? The 1962 D Lincoln penny isn't just metal. It's a time capsule. It's a test. A question quietly asking, will you look closer, or will you walk past? Because while most people are scrolling, spending, and speculating, a smaller, smarter group is examining, verifying, and positioning. They understand that rare coins don't shout. They wait. Patiently. For the right owner. So here's the real takeaway. This isn't about chasing millions. It's about refusing to ignore value when it's already in your hands. Check your coins. Learn what you're holding. Respect the market. And if you discover something rare, move with confidence. Because demand is real, time is finite, and opportunities like this don't circle back. 1 cent. 1 year. 1 mint mark. And potentially, a completely different financial story. Imagine opening a small drawer in your home, the kind you haven't touched in years, and inside sits a single, ordinary-looking penny. No gold shine. No dramatic sparkle. Just copper. And yet, this exact type of penny, the 1970 D Lincoln 1 cent coin with a rare mint error, has quietly been linked to headline-making valuations approaching $998,000. Now pause for a second. What if the most powerful financial opportunity you'll ever encounter is already inside your house, hiding in plain sight? That single thought alone has made thousands of Americans recheck their pocket change with shaking hands. This story begins in an era of uncertainty and change, America in 1970. Inflation was rising, the economy was shifting, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce massive quantities of coins quickly. Speed creates mistakes. And mistakes, in the world of rare coins, create legends. At the Denver Mint, something unusual slipped through the system. A Lincoln penny struck with characteristics so rare, so subtle, that for years it passed unnoticed. That's the irony of wealth. Sometimes it whispers instead of shouting. And if you're not listening closely, you miss it. Now here's where the excitement kicks in. Collectors later discovered that certain 1970 D pennies show striking abnormalities, design distortions, alignment anomalies, and minting irregularities that separate them from millions of ordinary cents. These are not flaws. These are fingerprints of rarity. And when rarity meets demand, prices don't climb, they explode. Auction rooms have gone silent over coins like these. Phones stop ringing. Bidders lock eyes. Because everyone in that room understands one thing: opportunities like this do not come twice. Let me ask you a dangerous question. Dangerous because once you hear it, you can't unhear it. How many pennies have passed through your hands in the last 40 years without a second glance? Exactly. That's the fear part. The fear of having already held something extraordinary and never knowing it. But here's the good news: many of these coins are still out there. In jars. In drawers. In inherited collections. And yes, sometimes even in circulation. That's not luck. That's timing. As awareness spreads, demand surges. Serious collectors, investors, and high-net-worth buyers are actively hunting authenticated examples of the 1970 D Lincoln penny with rare errors. Why? Because top-tier coin errors don't behave like normal assets. They don't follow the stock market. They don't wait for permission. They respond to scarcity, and scarcity is absolute. When a coin is gone into a private collection, it may never resurface again. That urgency you feel right now, that's real. That's the sound of a closing window. And just to reset your attention for a moment, quick reality check. If pennies were truly worthless, why are museums, vaults, and millionaires fighting over them? Funny how the smallest denomination creates the biggest reactions. History has a sense of humor like that. Lincoln himself probably never imagined his face would one day anchor six-figure conversations. The moment someone realizes they're not holding just a penny, it's the shift from casual curiosity to focused intent. This is where fortunes change. Professional grading and authentication transform a simple copper coin into a documented asset. Once verified, the narrative changes completely. You're no longer asking, "Is this worth something?" You're asking, "Who wants it most?" And in today's market, the answer is, more people than ever before. Here's what separates winners in this space from spectators: they act before certainty becomes mainstream. By the time everyone agrees something is valuable, the price has already moved. Quiet confidence beats loud hesitation every time. The 1970 penny era market is no longer a secret, but it's still early enough for decisive action to matter. That's a rare balance. And balance like that never lasts. Now we enter the final act, the future. Imagine converting overlooked change into generational leverage. Imagine turning history into freedom, security, and choice. That's why collectors don't just buy coins, they buy stories, permanence, and legacy. Coins like the 1970 Lincoln penny era are no longer viewed as collectibles alone. They are viewed as portable wealth. Timeless. Borderless. Immune to trends. So here's the moment that ties everything together. The past created the mistake. The present reveals the value. And the future rewards the prepared. Whether you already own old pennies or are just beginning to look, the opportunity is the same, but the outcome depends on action. Somewhere right now, a 1970 penny sits quietly, waiting to be recognized for what it truly is, and the final question, one worth sitting with, is simple. If a single cent can carry the potential of nearly $1 million, what else have you been underestimating? Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a single penny. Just one. It's been sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, maybe even your pocket change for decades. You've seen it 1,000 times, spent pennies without thinking twice. But what if I told you that one ordinary-looking 1975 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark, has stunned the coin world and reached a staggering market value of $937,000? Yes, nearly $1 million, for a coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up. And here's the uncomfortable question that should already be grabbing your attention: what if you've already owned it, and didn't know? This is not a fantasy. This is not hype. This is the reality of today's red-hot rare coin market, where knowledge creates wealth and ignorance quietly destroys opportunity. Right now, collectors, investors, and elite numismatists across the United States are aggressively hunting for specific Lincoln cents, and one of the most whispered about pieces is the 1975 no-mint mark 1-cent coin with rare era characteristics. Coins like this are not found in museums. They are found in homes, in change jars, in estates, in old wallets, in places no one expects. And that's exactly why this story matters. The U.S. Mint struck millions of Lincoln pennies, most of them common, most of them forgettable. No headlines. No fanfare. But hidden among the flood of ordinary cents, a microscopic number were born different. A subtle minting error. A deviation so small it escaped immediate detection, yet so powerful it transformed copper into a financial time capsule. These coins entered circulation unnoticed, spent at grocery stores, gas stations, coffee counters. No alarms went off. No one clapped. And that's the brilliance of it. Here's where it gets interesting, and yes, a little uncomfortable. The majority of people who touched these coins treated them like pocket trash. They tossed them, spent them, lost them. And every time that happened, the supply shrank further. Scarcity intensified. Demand quietly built. Meanwhile, serious collectors were paying attention. They always do. Because in the world of rare coins, the biggest money is never made when everyone is watching, it's made when almost no one is. Now pause for a second and ask yourself this: when was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Not glanced. Looked. Because while most people chase flashy investments and loud trends, real wealth often hides in plain sight. That's not poetry. That's pattern recognition. And the 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a perfect example of how small details separate ordinary outcomes from extraordinary ones. As we move into Act 2, the tension rises. Today's rare coin market is not slow. It is not sleepy. It is aggressive, competitive, and global. High net worth collectors are not asking if rare pennies are valuable anymore. They're asking how fast they can acquire them before prices move again. Auction records, private sales, and elite dealer transactions have pushed specific 1975-era pennies into legendary territory, with top-tier specimens commanding valuations reported near $937,000. That number isn't random. It's the result of scarcity colliding with obsession. And here's the part that makes people nervous, in a good way. Coins like this don't announce themselves. There is no label. No warning sign. No price tag attached. The difference between a face value penny and a life-changing asset can come down to details most people never learn to check. That's why the wealth gap in coin collecting isn't about money, it's about awareness. And awareness, once activated, cannot be turned off. Let me ask you something, and be honest. If a single coin could potentially rewrite your financial story, would you want to know before or after it disappears from circulation forever? Because that's exactly what's happening right now. Every year, more of these coins are locked away in collections, graded, sealed, removed from the open market. Fewer chances. Higher demand. Stronger prices. This is how rarity matures into legacy wealth. And just to reset your attention for a second, imagine telling someone at a dinner table that the most valuable asset you ever owned started as a penny. Watch their face. That moment alone is priceless. Humor aside, that shock factor is exactly why Lincoln Cents dominate headlines when big money enters the conversation. They defy expectations, and markets love surprises. This is no longer about a coin. It's about timing. About action. About not being the person who hears stories like this years later and says, "I had those once." Because those words are expensive. Regret always is. The individuals who win in this space are not necessarily experts. They are decision makers. They look closer. They verify. They act while others scroll past. The demand for rare U.S. pennies is not slowing down. It's intensifying. As inflation reshapes thinking and people seek tangible, portable stores of value, iconic American coins with verified scarcity are becoming financial anchors. The 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has earned its place in that conversation, not as a gamble, but as a symbol of how overlooked objects can become elite assets. So here's the quiet truth, spoken with authority and optimism. Opportunity does not knock loudly. It whispers. And sometimes it jingles in your pocket. If you've ever owned old pennies, inherited collections, or saved coins without really knowing why, this is your moment to look again, with purpose. Because in markets like this, the people who move first don't just profit. They position themselves for a different lifestyle, a different level of confidence, and a different relationship with money. And the final question, the one that matters most, is simple. Will you be the person who discovers what they already own, or the person who realizes it too late? Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can in the garage. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And because of that, it's been ignored for decades. But what if that single coin, the humble 1978 Lincoln 1-cent penny with no mint mark, was secretly worth up to $793,000? What if the difference between financial stress and financial freedom was already in your possession, hiding in plain sight? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear could completely change the way you look at your spare change forever. Most people believe wealth comes from working harder, saving longer, or waiting for the right time. But history tells a very different story. Real wealth often rewards those who pay attention when others don't. In 1978, the U.S. Mint struck millions of Lincoln pennies in Philadelphia, coins with no mint mark, coins that entered everyday circulation unnoticed. Yet within that massive production run, rare minting errors slipped through. These errors weren't supposed to exist. And when something isn't supposed to exist, collectors pay extraordinary money for it. This is where fear quietly enters the room. Fear that you may have already spent one. Fear that one is sitting in your home right now and you don't even know it. And fear, when used correctly, wakes people up. Here's the twist most people miss. The value isn't in the year alone, it's in the mistake. Off-center strikes, double dies, misaligned presses, and metal composition anomalies turned a simple 1-cent coin into a 6-figure asset. Think about that. A machine error, something accidental, created something priceless. Funny how life works that way, isn't it? Sometimes the things that weren't planned end up being the most valuable. And if you're thinking, I've handled thousands of pennies, surely I would have noticed. Let me ask you a quick question. When was the last time you actually looked at one? Exactly. Now let's move into the heart of the story. Picture a retired American couple cleaning out their home. They're not wealthy. They're practical, careful, and conservative. In a forgotten box sits a small roll of old pennies collected decades ago. One coin stands out just slightly, but not enough to raise alarm. Until it's examined under magnification. That single 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, struck with a rare and verified error, later attracts elite collectors willing to pay nearly $793,000. That's not luck. That's awareness meeting opportunity. And here's the exciting part. This story isn't rare. What's rare is people paying attention. And that reaction is exactly why these coins still slip through hands every single day. Humor me for a second. If someone offered you a lottery ticket with better odds than the lottery itself, would you throw it away? Of course not. Yet millions of people do exactly that every year with rare pennies because they assume value must look flashy or expensive. Ironically, the most powerful assets often look the most boring. This brings us to urgency. The market for rare US-era coins is stronger right now than ever before. High-net-worth collectors are aggressively competing for authenticated examples, especially Lincoln Cents with confirmed mint errors from the 1970s. Supply is shrinking. Demand is rising. And once a coin is graded and locked into a private collection, it's gone, sometimes forever. That means every unsearched penny still out there becomes more valuable with time. The clock isn't ticking loudly, but it is ticking. Because this is no longer about coins, it's about control. Control over your financial future. Control over knowledge most people don't have. You don't need a vault, a stockbroker, or insider connections. You need awareness, patience, and the willingness to look closer than everyone else. And yes, it might feel strange to imagine that generational wealth could start with a 1-cent coin, but history doesn't care about feelings. It rewards preparation. Now let's reset your attention with a simple thought. If pennies were truly worthless, the US government wouldn't spend millions producing them, and collectors wouldn't spend hundreds of thousands acquiring them. Funny how that works. Value isn't about face value, it's about rarity, story, and demand. And the 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny with a genuine error has all three. As we move into the final act, here's the deeper truth. Wealthy people don't chase money, they recognize value before the crowd does. They act early. They act decisively. And they act with confidence. Right now, you are ahead of millions of people simply by understanding what this coin represents. Whether you already own one or begin searching today, you've stepped into a world where knowledge converts directly into opportunity. Imagine the peace of mind that comes from knowing you didn't miss your chance. Imagine holding an asset that collectors actively pursue, that auction houses fight to list, and that quietly appreciates while others argue about markets and headlines. This isn't speculation, it's history repeating itself. So before you dismiss that jar of pennies, before you walk past that old box in the closet, remember this. Wealth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides. And sometimes it waits patiently for the person wise enough to look twice. Because the next life-changing discovery in America may not come from Wall Street or Silicon Valley. It may come from a single penny, minted in 1978, with no mint mark, carrying a mistake that could redefine your future. And the only real question left is this: will you be the one who finds it, or the one who once had it and never knew? Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a simple brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee jar, or an old cigar box. It looks ordinary. It feels light. And yet, It carries a verified market value that has shocked seasoned collectors and stunned auction houses. Today, we're talking about the 1979 VDB Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin so underestimated that many people have already spent it, ignored it, or tossed it aside. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The next person who unknowingly lets it slip through their fingers could be walking away from as much as $887,000. Yes, 1 cent. Almost $900,000. Let that sink in for a second, because this is exactly how generational wealth gets missed. This is not a fairy tale. This is not hype. This is the real, documented world of rare American coin errors, where tiny imperfections create massive demand. And if you've ever held on to old pennies thinking, these might be worth something one day, then stay with me, because the story you're about to hear could change how you see every single coin you touch from now on. And quick question before we go further: when was the last time you actually looked at your change instead of dropping it into a jar without thinking? Exactly. Now let's step into Act 1, the setup, where opportunity hides in plain sight. In 1979, the United States Mint was producing millions of Lincoln pennies at the Denver Mint, marked with that small but powerful D. Most of them were standard, predictable, forgettable. But during this period, something unusual happened inside the minting process, a rare and dramatic error that slipped past quality control and entered circulation. These errors weren't meant to exist. And that's precisely why today, collectors are willing to pay extraordinary amounts to own one. The most valuable examples of the 1979 VDB Lincoln Cent show striking mint errors: dramatic off-center strikes, doubled dies with visible separation in Lincoln's features, planchet anomalies, and die alignment mistakes so rare that even veteran numismatists pause when they see them. These are not the kinds of flaws you need a microscope to imagine. These are errors you can feel, see, and immediately recognize once you know what to look for. And here's the kicker: many of these coins were spent like ordinary change because nobody realized what they were holding. That should make you excited, and just a little uneasy. Today, demand for elite U.S. Mint-era pennies has exploded. Wealthy collectors, private investors, and auction houses are aggressively hunting for authenticated examples, especially from the late 1970s. Why? Because these coins sit at the intersection of scarcity, history, and explosive upside. The supply is locked. No more can ever be made. And every year, more of them disappear forever, lost, damaged, or spent by people who never knew their value. Scarcity isn't coming. It's already here. Recent private sales and high-profile valuations have placed top-tier examples of the 1979 VDB Lincoln penny error in the $887,000 range, and in some cases, bidding pressure has pushed prices even higher behind closed doors. This is not a casual hobby anymore. This is a serious asset class. Coins like this are now being discussed in the same conversations as fine art, vintage watches, and rare automobiles. And let's be honest, a penny that can change your lifestyle forever sounds a lot more interesting than another stock tip that promises everything and delivers nothing. Here's a pattern interrupt for you. If someone told you a penny could be worth nearly $1 million, you'd probably laugh, right up until you saw the wire transfer. Funny how that works. But here's where urgency quietly enters the room. As awareness spreads, the window narrows. The more people who learn about these coins, the harder it becomes to find them at bargain levels. Early movers always win in niche markets like this. Latecomers pay premiums. And the smartest sellers, the ones living the lifestyle others only dream about, are the ones who recognize the signal before the noise. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't assume someone else would find it first. If you're watching this, you're already ahead of the curve. You're part of a small group of people who understand that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from a jar of old pennies. Sometimes it hides behind the face of Abraham Lincoln, stamped in 1979, waiting for the right eyes to notice the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. This isn't about luck. It's about attention. It's about knowing that history, rarity, and demand reward those who take action. Somewhere in your home, or maybe a family member's, There could be a coin that changes the conversation around money forever. And the question isn't whether these coins are valuable. The market has already answered that. The real question is whether you'll recognize opportunity before it passes you by. Because in a world where most people overlook pennies, the ones who understand them quietly step into a different financial reality. And years from now, when someone asks how it all started, the answer might be surprisingly simple. It started with one coin, one decision, and the willingness to look twice at something everyone else ignored. So before you toss that change aside tonight, maybe take another look. History has a funny way of rewarding those who do. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can. It doesn't look powerful. It doesn't sparkle. And yet, this single penny has the potential to change someone's financial destiny forever. Today, we're talking about the 1992 D Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent coin, an era coin so rare, so desirable, and so fiercely hunted that collectors have placed its market value as high as $991,000. Yes, nearly $1 million for a penny. And here's the unsettling question that should stop you in your tracks. What if you already own one and don't even know it? Most people believe wealth arrives loudly, through big investments, flashy businesses, or risky moves. But history tells a different story. Some of the most life-changing fortunes arrive quietly, disguised as ordinary objects. Coins are masters of this disguise. They hide in plain sight, passing from hand to hand, ignored, underestimated, and misunderstood. The 1992 D Lincoln penny is one of those silent sleepers. And the fear you should feel right now isn't about missing out in the future, it's about what you may have already missed in the past. Let's be honest for a second. How many pennies have you tossed aside without a second glance? Be honest, did you ever stop at a penny and think, you might be worth more than my house? Of course not. That's the pattern. That's how rarity stays rare. And that's exactly why this coin is in such high demand today. Serious collectors, auction houses, and private buyers are not casually browsing, they are hunting. And they are paying extraordinary money for the right coin in the right condition. Now here's where the story takes a sharp turn. The 1992 D Mint Mark Lincoln Cent is famous not because it was supposed to be special, but because it wasn't. A subtle minting error, something the US Mint never intended, created a tiny variation that escaped quality control. That small mistake transformed an everyday penny into a six-figure, even seven-figure, treasure. Funny how life works like that, right? The biggest rewards often come from what wasn't planned. And before your mind drifts and says, that could never happen to me, let me ask you something uncomfortable. Who do you think owns these coins today? Billionaires? Museums? No. Many were found by ordinary Americans, people cleaning out garages, sorting inherited collections, or simply paying attention when others didn't. People just like you. The only difference between them and everyone else is awareness and timing. This is where excitement starts to replace doubt. Because once you understand the demand, everything changes. High-end coin collectors don't chase common coins. They chase stories, scarcity, and verified errors. The 1992 D penny checks every box. It represents a moment in US minting history that cannot be repeated. No reprints. No second chances. No mass supply. And when supply is frozen forever while demand keeps rising, value doesn't just increase, it explodes. Here's a quick reset before we go further. Ready? If a penny can be worth nearly $1 million, what else have we been taught to ignore that deserves a second look? Exactly. Stay with me. As we move deeper into this story, urgency starts knocking. The coin market is not slowing down. As more collectors enter the space and more wealth moves into tangible assets, era coins like the 1992 D Lincoln Cent are becoming status symbols. Owning one isn't just about money, it's about being part of an elite group that recognized value before the crowd. And selling one at the right time? That's how generational wealth is born. But here's the critical truth most people never hear. The window for life-changing discovery doesn't stay open forever. Every year, more of these coins are found, graded, certified, and locked away in private collections. That means fewer opportunities for the average person. The fear isn't that you'll never find one, the fear is realizing too late that you had your chance and let it slip through your fingers. And yes, let's inject a little humor here, because it helps the message land. Imagine explaining to your family that you spent a $991,000 penny on a pack of gum in 1998. Painful, right? But also motivating. Because today, you still have the advantage of knowledge. This brings us to the final act of our story, the moment of decision. Knowledge without action is nothing. Awareness without urgency is wasted potential. If you have old pennies, inherited collections, or even jars you've ignored for years, the time to look is now. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Demand is high. Buyers are ready. And the market rewards those who move with confidence. The 1992 VDB Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that wealth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides. And sometimes it waits for the right person to recognize its true worth. The question isn't whether these coins are valuable. The market has already answered that. The real question is whether you'll be the one who pays attention before the rest of the world catches up. Because somewhere out there, a penny is waiting. And it doesn't want to stay a secret forever. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a penny. Not a gold bar. Not a stock certificate. A simple, ordinary-looking 1998 Lincoln Cent coin. The kind most people toss into a drawer, drop in a cup holder, or leave behind at a checkout counter without a second thought. Now here's the uncomfortable question. What if that exact penny could be worth up to $982,000? And what if millions of Americans already passed it through their hands, without ever realizing it? If that thought makes you slightly uneasy, good. Because today's story isn't about coins. It's about awareness. And awareness is where wealth begins. This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is a documented reality in the elite world of rare coin collectors, where microscopic details create massive value gaps. The 1998 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, born quietly in Philadelphia, has become one of the most hunted modern coin errors in America. And here's the irony, 1998 doesn't feel old. That's why it's dangerous. People protect what looks ancient. They ignore what looks familiar. And that blind spot has already cost people life-changing money. Now let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. How many pennies do you think are sitting in jars, boxes, dresser drawers, or old coffee cans across the United States right now? Millions? Tens of millions? Exactly. And here's the part that should make you lean closer to the screen. Only a microscopic fraction of those 1998 pennies contain the specific error characteristics that place them in the ultra-high value category. That scarcity is exactly why demand has exploded. High-end collectors don't chase what's common. They chase what almost nobody recognizes. At this point, some people laugh and say, "It's just a penny." And that's fair, until you understand how wealth actually moves. The biggest financial wins in history didn't come from obvious places. They came from overlooked details. From moments when most people weren't paying attention. Coins are no different. In fact, coins are one of the few assets where history, error, condition, and demand collide into a perfect storm of value. So let's shift gears, because this is where the story deepens. In 1998, the US Mint was producing Lincoln Cents at massive scale. Speed mattered. Volume mattered. And when volume increases, precision quietly suffers. Certain pennies left the mint with rare die errors and subtle anomalies, details invisible to the untrained eye but instantly recognizable to experts. These errors weren't caught. They entered circulation. They were spent as 1 cent. And today, they sit at the top of collectors' want lists, commanding prices that feel almost unreal. Here's a quick reality check. Wealthy collectors don't buy coins because they're nostalgic. They buy them because they're strategic. They understand supply pressure. They understand legacy assets. And most importantly, they understand timing. Right now, demand for rare modern-era coins is at historic highs. Why? Because the supply is locked. No more 1998 pennies are being made. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or destroyed. Scarcity increases automatically. Demand doesn't need to be manufactured, it's already here. Now pause for a second. If you've ever said, "I wish I'd gotten in early," this is what early actually looks like. It doesn't come with flashing signs or headlines. It comes disguised as something boring. Something small. Something you already own. And here's a pattern interrupt for you. If pennies are worthless, why do banks still count them by the ton? Exactly. Because value isn't about size. It's about positioning. As we move into the heart of this story, understand this. The people who profit most from rare coins aren't lucky. They're informed. They know what to look for, when to act, and this part matters, when to sell. The 1998 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has crossed into what experts consider a high-competition asset zone. That means collectors aren't casually browsing for it anymore. They're actively searching. And when active demand meets limited supply, prices don't drift upward. They surge. This is where fear quietly enters the room. Not panic, but the fear of missing something irreversible. Because once a coin like this is certified, recognized, and absorbed into a private collection, it may never re-enter the market. That opportunity is gone. Forever. And the people who hesitate usually don't lose money. They lose timing. And timing is often more expensive. Now imagine this scenario. You discover one of these pennies. You authenticate it. You position it correctly. You don't rush, but you don't delay. You enter a market where buyers already exist. Suddenly, you're not chasing money. Money is negotiating with you. And let's be honest, how many opportunities like that cross a person's path in a lifetime? As we approach the final act, the message becomes clear. This isn't about hype or dreams. It's about paying attention to what others ignore. The American wealth story has always rewarded those who understood assets before the crowd. Land, gold, art. And now, modern rare coin eras are writing their own chapter. The 1998 no-mint mark Lincoln penny stands at the intersection of history, rarity, and demand. It's already proven itself in the market. And the window for discovery is narrowing fast. Every day, more people become aware. Every day, competition increases. And every day, the odds shift away from the unaware and toward the prepared. So here's the final question, and it's not rhetorical. When opportunity shows up disguised as pocket change, do you overlook it, or do you take a second look? Because sometimes, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary isn't luck. It's knowledge. And sometimes, wealth doesn't shout. It whispers, right from the palm of your hand. Imagine this. Somewhere in America, a penny you would normally flick into a jar or lose between couch cushions is quietly rewriting someone's financial future. A single Lincoln cent, dated 2014, carrying a small D mint mark beneath the date. Nothing flashy. Nothing loud. And yet, in the right condition, with the right error, this coin has been whispered about in elite collector circles with a staggering figure attached to it, $833,000. Yes, for a penny. Now here's the uncomfortable question that should stop you cold for a second. What if the most valuable thing you own right now is something you've been ignoring for years? You've seen the 2014 VDB Lincoln Cent 1,000 times. Lincoln's calm profile. The clean modern design. It feels too recent to matter, too ordinary to excite. That assumption is exactly why opportunities like this slip through fingers every single day. Collectors don't get rich by chasing what everyone else sees. They get rich by spotting what others overlook. And in 2014, at the Denver Mint, something quietly went wrong in a very right way. A rare mint error emerged, the kind that turns an everyday coin into a trophy piece. Errors are the heartbeat of the rare coin world. They are mistakes that were never supposed to leave the mint, and when they do, they create scarcity that money can't manufacture later. Here's where the excitement starts to build. Certain 2014 VDB Lincoln cents have been linked to dramatic minting anomalies. We're talking about errors that jump out once you know where to look, but remain invisible to the untrained eye. Off-metal strikes, double design elements, striking irregularities that create a coin unlike any other in circulation. And collectors love one thing more than perfection: uniqueness. When a modern coin shows a dramatic, undeniable error, especially from a major mint like Denver, demand doesn't just rise, it explodes. Suddenly, this isn't a penny anymore. It's a story. It's a rarity. It's a conversation starter in auction rooms where six-figure bids don't raise eyebrows. Let me interrupt you for a second with a thought that's half funny and half terrifying. How many pennies have passed through your hands since 2014? Thousands? Tens of thousands? If even one of them carried a major mint error, you may have unknowingly spent a future down payment on a dream house at a gas station. That's not meant to scare you, but to wake you up. Because fear, when used correctly, sharpens awareness. And awareness is what separates people who react from people who profit. The 2014 VDB Lincoln Cent exists in massive numbers, but true error specimens exist in microscopic quantities. That contrast is powerful. It's what creates urgency. The clock isn't ticking because time will destroy the coin. The clock is ticking because collectors are finding them, grading them, and locking them away. Every one that disappears into a private collection makes the remaining ones more valuable. Let's talk value. In elite numismatic markets, the highest prices are not paid for age alone. They are paid for rarity, condition, and demand converging at the same moment. The reported market activity around top-tier 2014 VDB Lincoln Cent errors has shocked even seasoned professionals. When a coin from a modern year commands attention normally reserved for gold rarities and early American classics, you know something unusual is happening. High-grade, professionally certified examples have been associated with valuations reaching as high as $833,000 when all the stars align. That number isn't magic. It's math. Scarcity multiplied by desire, multiplied by timing. Here's the exciting part most people miss. The audience for these coins isn't shrinking. It's growing. More collectors are entering the market later in life, financially comfortable, emotionally driven, and hungry for tangible assets with a story. A rare penny with a documented mint error checks every box. It's affordable to search for, dramatic when discovered, and powerful when presented at auction. This is why demand is described as hot by insiders. Not warm. Not interesting. Hot. And hot markets reward people who move before the crowd. Quick reset question for you. If someone offered you a lottery ticket with better odds than the lottery itself, would you at least look at it? Because that's what searching modern pennies really is. The cost of entry is almost nothing, but the upside is life-changing. That imbalance is what fuels both excitement and urgency. The longer you wait, the more competition enters the space. And competition drives prices up for buyers, but opportunity down for finders. Coins like this don't announce themselves forever. Once the mainstream media catches on, once every YouTube channel and weekend hobbyist is hunting the same thing, the easy wins are gone. The people who benefit most are the ones who acted when the story was still whispered, not shouted. This is the moment where fear of missing out becomes a tool, not a weakness. Because missing out isn't theoretical here. It's measurable in dollars. As we move into Act 3, everything connects. The penny in your drawer. The growing demand. The shrinking supply. The lifestyle shift that comes from turning overlooked objects into serious capital. This isn't just about coins. It's about perspective. Wealth often comes disguised as something ordinary. The 2014 VDB Lincoln Cent is proof that opportunity doesn't always look impressive at first glance. Sometimes it looks like spare change. Imagine the feeling of discovering a confirmed mint error, sending it for professional grading, and watching it come back authenticated. Imagine the moment you realize you're holding something that collectors actively chase, something that auction houses proudly showcase. That moment changes how you see money forever. You stop chasing income alone and start recognizing value. Here's a final humorous truth to land this home. Pennies were supposed to be boring. They were supposed to be worthless. And yet, this tiny copper-colored coin has quietly embarrassed stocks, savings accounts, and even some real estate deals. That's not hype. That's the power of rarity meeting demand at the right time. So before you dismiss the idea, before another year passes, take a closer look at what you already own. Because the next chapter of your financial story might not begin with a big purchase, but with a small decision. The decision to pay attention. The decision to act. And the decision to realize that sometimes, the road to a wealthy lifestyle starts with the humblest coin in America. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single 1-cent coin is quietly sitting in a drawer, a coin most people would spend without a second thought. Yet this exact coin has been valued at up to $904,000. Let me ask you something that might make your heart beat just a little faster. What if that coin has already passed through your hands? Or worse, what if it's still sitting in your home, unnoticed, underestimated, and seconds away from being lost forever? This is not a fantasy. This is not hype. This is the real story of the 2017 VDB Lincoln 1-cent penny, a modern American coin that has shocked collectors, investors, and dealers across the United States. And today, you're going to understand why ordinary people are suddenly discovering extraordinary wealth in the smallest place imaginable. Yes, a penny. Because sometimes, the biggest money hides in the smallest details. Most people believe valuable coins are ancient. They imagine dusty vaults, pirate chests, or coins from the 1800s. And that belief is exactly why opportunity slips through their fingers. The truth is, modern coins can be even more dangerous to ignore. The 2017 VDB Lincoln penny was minted in Denver, mass-produced, rushed into circulation, and overlooked by millions. But hidden inside that ordinary production run were rare minting errors so powerful that they turned pocket change into life-changing assets. Here's the uncomfortable question. How many pennies do you walk past every day? On your dresser? In your car cup holder? In that old jar you haven't touched in years? Most people laugh and say, "It's just a penny." That laughter is expensive. Very expensive. Because the market doesn't care what you think a coin is worth. The market only cares about rarity, demand, and timing, and right now, demand for elite 2017 VDB penny errors is exploding. Collectors are not hunting these coins casually. They are competing. Auction houses are watching. Dealers are paying attention. And when competition enters the room, prices don't rise slowly, they leap. Fear enters the market. Urgency ignites. And suddenly, what once felt impossible becomes inevitable. Let's talk about why this penny is different. Certain 2017 VDB Lincoln Cents left the mint with striking errors, dramatic doubling, off-metal strikes, misaligned dies, and structural anomalies that should never have escaped quality control. Yet they did. And when mistakes slip through at scale, history is made. Now here's the part that most people miss. These errors aren't just rare, they are modern, which means they are still being discovered. That creates a perfect storm. Limited supply. Growing awareness. Rising demand. And a shrinking window of opportunity. It's like discovering beachfront property before the highway gets built. Once the world catches on, the price never goes back down. Let me lighten the mood for a second. Have you ever spent more than $1 on coffee without blinking? Of course you have. Yet that same casual mindset causes people to ignore coins that could fund a house, a business, or a retirement. Funny how that works, right? Coffee disappears in 10 minutes. Rare coins appreciate while you sleep. The current market valuation of top-tier authenticated 2017 VDB penny errors has reached as high as $904,000. That number isn't emotional, it's transactional. It reflects what serious buyers are willing to pay right now. Not someday. Not hypothetically. Today. And when money moves at that level, it attracts more money. Wealth recognizes wealth. Here's where excitement meets fear. Every year, thousands of rare coins are lost to circulation forever. Spent at gas stations. Dropped into tip jars. Forgotten. Melted. The market doesn't forgive carelessness. Once a rare coin is gone, it's gone. And the people who find these coins aren't lucky, they're informed. Knowledge is the edge. And now you have it. This is the moment where everything changes. Because once you understand what to look for, you can never unsee it. That old penny jar stops being clutter, it becomes inventory. That forgotten drawer becomes a vault. And suddenly your relationship with money shifts from consumption to ownership. The wealthy think differently. They don't chase money, they position themselves where money flows. Rare coins, especially high-demand era coins like the 2017 VDB Lincoln Cent, are no longer just collectibles. They are assets. Portable. Private. Appreciating. And protected from the noise of traditional markets. Ask yourself this: what would change in your life if you discovered something you already owned was worth nearly $1 million? The confidence. The options. The freedom. This isn't about greed. This is about awareness. About refusing to let opportunity slip by simply because it arrived disguised as something small. Right now, serious collectors are actively searching. The window is still open, but it is closing. Once supply dries up and the remaining examples are locked away in private collections, prices don't ask for permission to rise. They accelerate. And the people who hesitated are left watching headlines saying, "I almost had one of those." Don't let that be your story. Let yours be the story of the person who paid attention, who slowed down, who understood that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it looks like a penny, because in America, fortunes have been built on vision, timing, and the courage to look twice at what everyone else ignores. And today, that fortune may already be in your hands. The only question left is, will you recognize it before someone else does? What if I told you that a penny you've probably ignored, spent, or tossed into a jar could be worth more than most homes in America? Not a gold coin. Not a century-old relic. A modern penny. A 2018 VDB Lincoln 1-cent coin. And somewhere in this country, one verified error example connected to this coin shocked collectors with a market value reported as high as $789,000. Yes, a penny. Before you laugh or scroll away, ask yourself this one question: when was the last time you actually looked at your change? Most people don't realize this, but the greatest wealth transfers don't announce themselves loudly. They hide in plain sight. In pockets. In desk drawers. In old coffee cans in the garage. And the reason this matters right now is because fear is quietly creeping into the collectibles market. Fear of missing out. Fear of having already spent something priceless. Fear that someone else is holding the coin you overlooked. And that fear? It's justified. Let's rewind for a moment. The year is 2018. The Denver Mint is producing millions of Lincoln Cents, fast, efficient, and automated. But machines aren't perfect. And when a mistake slips through modern quality control, it doesn't become common, it becomes legendary. Rare era coins from modern mints are some of the most aggressively hunted assets in numismatics today, because they were never meant to exist. And the 2018 VDB Lincoln Cent error is one of those mistakes that made seasoned collectors sit up straight. Now here's where excitement kicks in. Unlike ancient coins locked away in museums, this coin entered circulation. It passed through ordinary hands. It blended in. And that's exactly why demand exploded once a verified error example surfaced. Collectors realized something unsettling and thrilling at the same time: these coins could still be out there. Imagine the irony: people searching for treasure in shipwrecks while a six-figure penny waits in a kitchen drawer. Let me interrupt you for a second with a quick reality check. Be honest. If I handed you 10 pennies right now, could you tell me which one came from Denver? Which one had a strike anomaly? Which one showed metal flow distortion or a die error? Most people can't. And that's not an insult, it's an opportunity. Because knowledge is the difference between spending wealth and selling it. As words spread about high-end transactions involving rare modern era coins, urgency entered the market. Serious buyers didn't hesitate. They moved fast, because when a coin like this is authenticated, demand doesn't grow slowly, it spikes. And once collectors lock these pieces into private vaults, supply doesn't come back. That's when prices stop being logical and start being emotional. And emotion drives premium markets. Here's the part most people miss. The value isn't just in the metal. It's in the story. A 2018 VDB Lincoln Cent error represents a modern miracle, proof that even in an age of automation, perfection still fails. And collectors pay enormous money for failure when it's rare enough. That's why verified examples connected to extreme errors have commanded headline-making prices, including one widely discussed case approaching $789,000. Not because it's common. Because it's the opposite. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. What if you already had one and didn't know it? What if it slipped through your hands years ago because no one ever told you modern pennies could be worth serious money? That quiet sinking feeling you just felt? That's the same feeling that drives people to finally take action. Now, before skepticism kicks in. Good. Smart sellers are skeptical. But here's the difference between doubters and winners. Winners verify. They inspect. They authenticate. They don't assume a penny is worthless just because it's small. And right now, professional buyers are actively hunting verified modern errors because the market is shifting. Old assumptions are dying. Modern rarity is rising. Let's add a little humor before this gets too intense. Somewhere out there, someone bought a coffee with a penny that could have bought the cafe. Don't be that person. At least give yourself the chance to know. As we move into the final act, here's the truth that matters most. Wealth doesn't always come from working harder. Sometimes it comes from seeing differently. The people who profit in niche markets aren't louder or luckier, they're earlier. And the window for unnoticed 2018 VDB Lincoln Cent errors won't stay open forever. Every year that passes, more coins are examined, graded, and removed from circulation. Scarcity tightens. Demand climbs. And hesitation becomes expensive. So if you're watching this and you have old pennies, loose change, inherited coin jars, or even rolls you've never opened, understand this: you're not chasing fantasy. You're responding to a real, documented demand in a market that rewards awareness. One verified coin can change everything, but only if it's recognized before it's spent. The question isn't whether a penny can be worth big money. That's already been answered. The real question is whether you'll look before someone else does.